Good afternoon and welcome to our Twilight webinar. My name is Charlene Betcher. I'm the Business Development Coordinator here at Supawood. Now today I'm pleased to introduce Richard Hardwick, our National Specifications Manager, who will be presenting part 2 of our Dreams to Reality series. And together we are very pleased to introduce our guest speaker, which is Damien Jones. He's an architect at NBRS Architecture. So welcome, Damien. We're happy to have you aboard. Damien will provide some insights into his experiences on a recent project Supawood was involved with. So often in the world of design, we hear that it can't be done, but today we're excited to showcase 2 examples of where we took challenging designs and turned them into inspiring realities. This webinar will run for approximately 40 minutes. There is an opportunity for you to ask questions in the Q&A box down at the bottom of your screen. We'd encourage everyone to do that. We'll answer as many as we can live at the end of the session, but if we don't get to them, don't fret, we'll chat to you later in the week. As a final note, there's a lucky door prize, which is up on the screen now to be won. There's also an option of a non-alcoholic prize if you want to opt for that. To be eligible for the prize, you must stay online for the full duration of the session so you can respond to us calling your name out at the end. I think that's me, so I'll pass it on to Richard. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Charlene, and thank you for joining us, Damien. Good evening. My name is Richard Hardwick, and I'm the National Specification Manager with Supawood. So welcome to Dream Designs to Reality Part 2. Okay, now this is all about innovation. So why innovate? For you as an architect, why would you innovate? Well, it is a collaboration between yourself and ourselves as a manufacturer and a supplier. And our goal is to release your creativity. So let's start with the first project. We're going to talk about the Robina Market Hall. Now, this was based on a design concept prepared in 2013 from a London-based design firm, Acme Seventh Wave Architects. A major design feature is the repetitive waves of the roof. These waves are conoid with truncated ends, which give the opportunity for south-facing gables with glazing and offer a nod to the coastal nature of the city. The Buchan Group provided both the retail master plan, the design development, documentation, and architectural construction documentation for the Market Hall redevelopment here at the Robina Town Centre for QIC. Now, Supawood turned this stunning but geometrically complex concept by Acme into a reality utilising Super Custom. Okay. Now, Acme drew precedent inspiration from projects such as the Welsh Assembly Building in Cardiff, the Madras Baraya Airport, and the Aquatic Centre in London. Now, the panels for the Welsh Assembly Building were delivered flat pack and steam bent on site to manipulate the form of the wood. However, steam bending cannot achieve a twist on 2 planes with a simultaneous curve. This is what was required for the Robina development. Furthermore, this method was not practicable for the requirements of the Robina project. This $50 million project involved major renovations and extension to the Gold Coast's largest shopping destination. It had to be delivered whilst maintaining the operational capacity of the existing centre. Therefore, a different solution was required. The slatted timber ceiling forms a wave effect which twists and curves in 2 directions and is integrated with south-facing windows. This effect being repeated several times down the length of the mall. Supawood was the only company who were able to solve the complex shape required to allow the slatted panels to follow the intended multifaceted geometry. The solution was a bespoke concealed notching design applied to the rear of the panels, whilst meeting fire compliance. As you can see here, this was the vision developed for QIC, and this is what they were hoping to realise. As you can see in their report, they listed some potential suppliers to bring this to life. Now, what you can see here is a typical design solution that was offered to ADCO, who were the chosen contractor. And this solution involved the sequential nailing of individual slat forms, forming an amphitheatre type concept. And it allowed visibility of the fixings from the elevation perspective. So not really the solution for the complex design geometry that was required. And that requirement was the twist on the two planes and the simultaneous curve. So we were the only company who were able to solve the complexity of the shape required to allow the slatted panels to follow the intended multifaceted geometry. The solution was a bespoke concealed notching design applied to the rear of the panels. This is called kerfing, right? We have the necessary mathematical expertise to provide solutions for these complex design types. To prove our case, we designed and built a prototype frame in our factory based on the architect's design. Here is the prototype test rig that we constructed on our site here in Bathurst. We applied our mathematical formulation in the concealed notching process and applied it to the frame. Okay, so these were 18mm slats that started out as basically as a banana shape, and when bent, they ended up straight. So quite complex. ADCO came to our Bathurst facility to view our prototype test panels and came away confident in our capabilities. Understandably, for ADCO, risk was a major factor. Nothing quite like this had been done before anywhere using the modular panel system that was needed to be able to install the vast expanse of the ceiling in the required program time. What you're looking at here is the level of detail that we involve ourselves in. So what you're looking at are our notes applied to the photographs of our samples. So this involved, extensive in-house colour matching for the required finish, which was the black butt natural timber veneer. Here you're looking at the integrated acoustic textile installation procedure and its application to the configuration samples. So this was all sequential, okay? What you're looking at here is basically Supawood's engineering capability. So we've developed an RCP view, and this is the internal layout. You can also see this was for approval. Now, the elevation on the left was for approval. Now, what I'm going to talk to you about here is the fact that we have the capability to open and interpret across a range of design platforms. So we have Revit families, we can do AutoCAD, SketchUp, etc. Okay, so we've got the ability to open and interpret your drawings, and then where you require the support in the detailing, we can edit your drawings and then communicate back to you. On the right there, you're looking at the groove panel construction set. The next step, when all of this was completed, was a requirement to complete a test bay at the Robina site to demonstrate to the builder the simplicity or the practicality of the installation. Okay, so that's what you're looking at there. What we did to achieve this for the installer was to supply a sequenced set of installation instructions for the project. Now, this is our standard, particularly where innovative designs are employed. Builders and installers are not left guessing. We also provide on-site technical and practical assistance. So what I'm trying to communicate here is that the more you involve yourselves with an innovative supplier like us, the more likelihood you are to achieve the reality of your dream, right? It's our mission to bring your dream and turn it into that reality. And so for the installers on site, it's basically, there's no guesswork. It's follow the numbers. Number 1 to the working set, 1 to the panel, 1 to the frame. Okay. Now, when you're talking about post-installation, it doesn't finish there for us. natural timber veneers can vary in colour within the same species, as you'd be aware of. Here we identified those that we considered too variable, and we had them French polished on site. And there you have it, the perfect form, okay? And as you can see from that elevation perspective, the kerfing is concealed, okay? So we met exactly the intent for the project. This is what it looked at. This is what it looked like, when it was finished. And it's just grand. And this is what the project manager for ADCO said about us. An architectural marvel on paper being turned into a reality by the Supawood team. All right? So that gives you a bit of a background for our main feature today. And that's where we're going to be talking about Knox Grammar Performing Arts Centre and Junior School Academy. This was a consultative collaboration between MBRS Architecture, PKA Acoustic Consultants, Taylor Constructions and Supawood. So, Damien, can you set the context for this project and MBRS Architecture's involvement with Supawood, please?
Yeah, certainly. Thanks for having us on this evening. It's been a great opportunity in working with Supawood in a number of projects, and this one in particular, as we'll see from some of the photos and the design, was really exciting. We obviously were working with Knox Grammar School on the project for a performing arts centre and junior school academy. And it was a real combination of academic learning spaces and performing arts learning spaces and the experiences of using those spaces and spaces around them. So like NBRS, Knox Grammar School is very passionate about all learning and giving students the best opportunities available to enhance their future and the society that they live in. Performing arts itself enhances emotional intelligence, collaborative skills, and life-changing experiences. So being able to work with Knox Grammar School in developing the design and going from that right through to construction and working with Supawood was a very special and great opportunity.
Okay, so thank you for that, Damien. NBRS Architecture was commissioned to design the state-of-the-art Performing Arts Centre for Knox Grammar, aimed at inspiring and promoting the school's cultural life. When choosing products to be used, achieving acoustic excellence and BCA requirements were a priority. So Supawood were chosen as they offered customisable lighting products with full technical support from beginning to completion. Now we're going to be looking at the three main areas that needed to be addressed. The main theatre, which is a 750-seat space used for drama, musicals, assemblies and seminars. Rehearsal room 1 for the music ensembles, the orchestra and pipe band, and the choir training room. And we're also going to be looking at the entrance or the atrium lobby. So this is what you can see on the left-hand side. So this is where it begins. So let me ask you, Damien, how did the design progress and what were some of the key components that had to be addressed?
Yeah, great. If you don't mind just flicking back to that last slide, my apologies.
Yep.
That's a great question because obviously we're wanting to provide the best opportunity for the students, for the school and for everyone who uses the facility. And I think these pictures really help to gather a bit of a picture of what that was. So from the entrance, you can see on the picture on the left there, the large glass facade coming into the main foyer and having our Supawood panels wrapping around the curved rear wall of the auditorium, a nice open light-filled space. And similar with the picture on the right, you can see again the main theatre of the Knox Grammar School with the Supawood panels, as we'll be talking about shortly. But it's the considerations that we went through from concept through the design in wanting to provide the creative, innovative learning environments for people not just using the theatre, but as they move through the space, to learn and to experience and to discover as they are using those spaces. So having a holistic design that touched on all of those rooms and more that you just referred to earlier. So starting off in the foyer, so in the next slide that you had there, some of the considerations that we had, obviously we've got our fire considerations as you typically do. We have acoustic. We have the construction considerations, a nice curved wall, a number of people using the space as well. And in this particular space, and we'll touch on it again a bit later, on the, you can see the curved wall there, it's a lovely shot. Just below the mezzanine floor there and above the Supawood panels, you can see a black trim as it wraps around the corner. So we've got a concealed hanging system there so that the school could use this as an art space as well. So there's a real flexibility in the design and the use of the space. That builds a bit of a picture.
Yes, thank you for that, Damien. Yeah, so what we do with these panels, similarly, the kerfing process that we employed on the previous project, we utilised that with these panels to an exact calculation relative to the required radius. The timber finish complements the other materials used as well as providing a highly durable wall surface. So these panels were installed using our split batten fixing detail. Now, Damien touched on this. This shows you, what I'm showing you here is our philosophy around continuous improvement within Supawood. Our split batten design system illustrates a simple example of this. It's a small improvement that can have a profound effect on site. Here, what it does is speed up the installation and eliminates error. The hand-drawn detail on the left is the original industry standard 45-degree split batten. It's otherwise known as a short form. This requires a perfect interface to work, and in its day was practically limited by the out-of-true frames and walls that typically featured behind them, okay? Supawood developed the split batten detail on the right that physically provides 8 millimeters of interface friction to eliminate the possibility of rocking due to the batten's incorrect positioning or the wall being out of true, okay? So it was a small step, but our design here allows basically a 2 mil tolerance during installation. So in other words, the installer doesn't have to be millimeter perfect, and it doesn't fail, and there's no rocking. What this does from a practical perspective, when you're on a site like this, a school site, you've got a lot of traffic, and you've got the students leaning up against walls, etc. And it also gave some flexibility to Damien's design. Now, Damien, could you explain the impact of this small improvement on the overall usage of this space? You fleshed it out a little bit before, but can you go over that point again?
Yes, certainly. The curved wall around the rear of the auditorium where these panels were installed would be close to, I'd say, 40 metres long, if not more. So it's quite a length of wall as it wraps around the side of the foyer. The number of people that use that space is significant. So making sure that our panels were fixed securely with concealed fixings was really important. And similarly, as I mentioned earlier, having a concealed fixing system for our picture hanging, so for the artworks that were being hung on these particular walls. So as people are installing or removing artworks, we needed to have the confidence that our Supawood panels on the lining would be securely fixed. It also, the way that they were installed, but also enabled us to have a nice clean detail at the top of the wall where our picture hanging detail was installed. again, or concealed fixings. So it provided a nice, clean finish to this wall, which is, as I mentioned before, was so critical because it's the first thing you see when you walk into the building. And aiming for a world-class product, a world-class space that provides an experience that you're going to remember. We wanted the best finish that we could, and we're really happy with how it turned out.
Okay, thank you for that, Damien. Now, we're now looking at the multi-purpose theatre, and I'm going to read this quote from a Knox student. This is what a Knox student said about this. When you look at a piece of music, it's just notes on a page, black dots on a page. They're not real until you bring them to life. The great joy about playing music, it's a great way to bring people together with the same interests. So now, Damien, what did that mean for the NBRS team?
Yes, well, it's a beautiful quote, and it was by a student who was sitting in one of the music classrooms within this facility. Who's very articulate, and being able to read that after the event was a real joy to be able to read it. And it's so easy to see the correlation between the journey that we went through from design and conception, developing that design, and into the built form. So there's many opportunities that we had to take it from our concept, developing that in the design, and bringing it to life. So at NBRS, we're really keen that we're creating life-changing environments. And it's a great opportunity. I love the way that Supawood work in the bringing those dreams to reality. And I think this student nailed it in his quote. And that's what we were able to achieve.
It's because this theatre, this forms the nucleus of the overall Performing Arts Centre. That's my understanding of your design.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
Okay. Now, can you speak to us about the acoustic design, please, Damien? Because this was critical for you, I understand.
Yes, it was. So we have a fan-shaped, this is the floor plan of the main theatre, as you can see. It's a fan shape in plan with a stage at the top left-hand corner and the rear wall at the bottom right-hand corner. And part of the challenge is we worked with PKA Acoustics, who did a phenomenal job in talking with them about how we can optimize this space to get the most out of it, acoustically as well as architecturally. So the side walls are approximately 20 metres long, 12 metres high. It was a huge amount of wall space to be looking at how do we treat this architecturally, but also how do we treat it acoustically to maximise and optimise this space. So as PKA reviewed the space, looked at the design, how the acoustics were working, it became evident that we needed to have some sound reflectors on the sides walls of the auditorium, as well as some treatment. You can see on the mezzanine floor, there's a curved portion of a colour there for our mezzanine balustrade, which we'll talk about shortly as well. But in the design of the side reflectors, PKA and NBRS developed a triangular prism shape that formed as it rose up on the external walls, on the side walls, I should say, as you can see on PKA's sketch there. And you can also see in the middle of those panels some horizontal red lines that were acoustic shelves. So these reflectors were able to manage the sound to develop the acoustic performance. Without them, the performers on stage wouldn't have been hearing the sound as it made its way around the auditorium and would have been feeling more disconnected. But the acoustic design was able to use the acoustics of the room and the reflection of those acoustics to maximise and optimise the acoustics in that space so that the performers on the stage would feel like they're connected to the audience, which was really important. NBRS worked with PKE to develop this design. I think you might see more of that on the next slide. So that as people are sitting in the space, they're aware of these side reflectors just above them, but they're not obtrusive. We wanted to make sure that people felt comfortable as well as being able to enjoy the acoustics of the space. That the size of the side reflectors were proportionate to the side walls and the rest of the auditorium, the main theatre. And you can see on the right-hand side there was an incorporation of some lighting into the acoustic shelves as well, which you would have seen in some of the photos already, which just adds another level of design and experience into the space. And those lights actually dim with the house lights. They rise and dim with the house lights, which it was really lovely being in the space and seeing other people's experience of that when it's in operation.
That's great. So in all of this, well, what you're looking at here, the sketch on the left, this was an original concept sketch by Supawood to determine fabrication for the superline walls, the wall panels that Damien was just discussing. And that sketch was based on our initial meeting with Damien in his office. Now, what I'd like you to ask you, Damien, what did you need from Supawood? What particularly did you need from us?
Yes, I remember having the conversation with Colin on site. It was a lovely experience. Right from the beginning with Supawood, we needed a material that was compliant with the BCA. So we needed our fire compliances. We needed something that was acoustically appropriate, aesthetically appropriate as well, and something that we could use throughout the building. So we've already seen it in the foyer and now the main theatre. So being able to know that Supawood was able to provide that kind of product that would look great and perform as well as we needed it to. And I remember sitting down with Colin and we're talking through taking it from our construction design, taking it through the shop drawing process. And you can see some of the working out of where our framing or the Supawood framing was going to go, how that correlated to the stud frame wall, the studs in the wall behind the Supawood frames, how we managed control joints was quite an interesting process to work through as well. But there was a lot of experience that Supawood were able to bring in terms of the framing, the fixing, how it all went together to work with the construction constraints like control joints, as well as the architectural constraints in providing something that worked with the space, as well as the acoustic requirements as well.
Yes, this was interesting. This was our ongoing collaboration. I mean, one of the notable points about this, or during this experience, was with with Taylor Constructions and some concerns around the perceived risks associated with framing areas for the wall panels. Now, during our initial site meeting with the project manager, we detected a hesitation around this, and we stepped in to advise that we could incorporate the frame design and manufacture as part of our technical support, thus ensuring a coherent, seamless, sequenced installation methodology that would eliminate any error. Now, that offer was accepted, and a sense of relief from the construction team was immediate. That's what we sensed. So this is our frame layout. Now, one of the other challenges that Damien has raised with our frame design was the acoustic wall cladding that was sited behind our frame. Now, the frame couldn't be fixed on the joint line or directly below that joint line because of the differing expansion and contraction coefficients. So what we did was design a cantilevered frame in 3 sections that was initially fixed above the control joint and allowed for free expansion and contraction of the wall cladding directly behind it. Now, what you're looking at here are the prototype panels and frames that we designed and built to determine the best means of fabricating these panel and frame shapes to make them work seamlessly. Okay. Now, I was going to say here that MBRS and PKA coordinated with us to develop these shop drawings, and Damien spoke about this before. The main acoustic priorities were to ensure a reflective surface, the appropriate depth, and the angles of reflectors and dimensions to ensure the appropriate frequencies were addressed. Can you develop on this, Damien, this point?
Yeah, sure. You can see the triangular shape in plan there on the drawing. The proportions of that was very specific from PKA to get the right reflectivity of the different sound waves, and working that into Supawood's design. There were some minor tweaks along the way, but also in terms of the constructability, it couldn't be too deep of a triangular profile, because then it became a bit tricky to actually be self-supporting. One of the other elements that we also were able to talk to Supawood about, and Supawood were able to tweak further, was actually polishing, putting like a polish finish on the Supawood surface, which added another level of acoustic performance to the product, which was fantastic.
Okay. Now, once the best method was determined and proven, all these shape panels were constructed at our Bathurst site and delivered in a kit form for easy installation on site. And lighting features were also integrated into these panels. So this is what we're looking at. Taylor Constructions, during our site meetings, also requested that we supply these integrated light box once they realised we could incorporate the wall panel framing into our manufacture and supply. This seemed to them to be a logical step, again, to eliminate risk. And it proved to be the right decision, as you've heard Damien describe. There is the concept that was developed by PKA on the left-hand side, and that was what you're looking at on the right-hand side is the section detail on how we were going to frame this to the wall panels. So these comprised 3 tiers supplied loose to be fixed on site. So that's where you're looking at the 3-dimensional form there on the left, and that's what it looks like, in a detail in those photos on the right-hand side. Now, this is the shelf detail or the tier detail. This was achieved using pre-grooved folded panels that were delivered flat pack to the site and installed sequentially, stacked, but with each shelf independently fixed off to the wall behind with angles. Okay, each shelf comprised a generous cavity to accommodate the LED lighting and associated wiring for each of those shelves. To achieve the required proportions, we consulted with the project's electrical engineer. Overall,
sorry, just in the mix of that, we also had to maintain proportions of each of those panels, each of those horizontal portions of the acoustic shelves, there were acoustic proportions that we had to retain as well.
Yes.
So it really was it's lovely to look at. It works beautifully acoustically, but to make this actually work through the process of coordinating with the electrical engineer, the acoustic, the architect, the builder, was a real process. And I think it's quite a testament to how well the team worked.
Yeah.
With everybody on site. It was
a real collaborative effect.
It was.
Yeah. And for the audience, this is why it's important when you're thinking about these kind of complex designs, whoever the supplier is, hopefully it's us, but whoever you're looking at in terms of this, is the real need to involve them in the discussions at the intent, right? Because those companies like us here at Supawood, we've got the in-house expertise to engage in these conversations and make this kind of work happen, okay? And this work is precise. Now, overall, for this internal space, we supplied a coherent step-by-step installation, instruction guide to the installer. The installer was Bright Ceilings. The success of the simplicity of our kit and its installation instructions was proven by the total absence of any calls from the installer back to us seeking any assistance. So there's quite a complexity, as Damien has explained, to this. And what we did here was provide just a very sequential kit form and the steps that were necessary to install it on site, step by step. Now, Damien, there were other areas of the main theatre that needed design development with Supawood. Would you like to speak about those, please?
Yeah, sure. I mentioned briefly earlier on the mezzanine, there's a balustrade. You can see just in the foreground there as it curves away on the left-hand side. It needed to achieve a number of functions, one being acoustics, the other being the balustrade itself. So there was BCA compliances in terms of the profile of the balustrade and the height. Other items that needed to be worked through were access panels, which you can see on the top there. There's a portion of perforations that is an access panel that leads you to stage lighting underneath and other theatre equipment that's required to be accessed and moved at certain times in preparation for different performances. So it was quite a process in working through the design initially up until the tender period, but then also after as we're working through the shop drawing process.
Yes, well, to pick up from there, one of the interesting challenges came when our supplied prototype didn't fit on site, as both the built concrete rise and the associated steel framing didn't precisely match your architectural detail. So therefore, we had to adapt the design and the manufacture of our panels to suit the in situ form whilst maintaining that continuous curvature that you can see and the level, right, to meet your design intent. So as you were saying before, considerable dialogue between yourself, our engineering department, and the contractor on site to make this happen. And one of the other features was the use of the piano hinges that you can see there. Now, compared to butt hinges, these piano hinges maintain a much longer lifespan, and it maintains a higher level of strength and precision, you know, for years after, you know, you put the final screw in and tighten it. You know, they're fairly versatile, they're affordable, and they provide less noise when operated. So we chose this as a fixing detail in collaboration with Damien to ensure all of those requirements, you know, provided the access that the technicians needed. Those perforations too, that you can see in those access panels provide, or not provide, but allowed for ventilation through that. All right, so now these were the other areas that provided where we provided a comprehensive solution. They were the rehearsal and the choir studios. So the concept design for all of these panels was undertaken by Damien in PKA. Damien, can you explain your design to our audience, please?
Yes, certainly. So we're looking at the floor plan and a reflected ceiling plan of the music rehearsal room. And as Richard was saying, there's also other rooms. There's a choral training room, there's a chamber music training room, and a number of other rooms that we had to go through a similar process as we did with the music rehearsal room here. Again, we have a fan-shaped room that was going to be used by a variety of functions, from a 30 to 40 piece orchestra, pipe band, music ensembles, a number of different functionalities. So being able to provide the right acoustic design for the space was really critical. One of the challenges we had was a relatively low ceiling height. I think it was 3 odd plus meters, so it wasn't very low. But in terms of the kind of use that this room was going to have and the acoustic requirements that it needed, it did pose a bit of a challenge. So we worked with PKA on how we can design an appropriate acoustic solution, part of which was the Supawood product that we ended up using. So we needed to address the volume of the space, being able to scatter the sound so that whenever it was used for orchestra or the pipe band, the experience that people had in that space was what it needed to be, not just at an average level, but as the best that it possibly could be.
Yes, and I understand that you also had to take into account the location of services through the ceiling. We
certainly did. Because the profile of the slats, they varied in height. Having surface-mounted electrical services did pose a challenge. I think you might have seen on the photo, there was some surface-mounted lights. They were about 150 mil diameter, 200 mil diameter. Being able to work through items like that, smoke detectors, all those little things that can so easily get missed, but being able to work through the detail of how those services interacted with the Supawood product to ensure that when we did locate a surface mounted light, it had a flat space to sit onto. So the junction was nice and clean. We didn't see any holes or gaps in between the light and the Supawood product. But then at the same time, we didn't see large portions of flat surfaces. It was only underneath the service itself. Everywhere else, we had this lovely the super slat product in terms of its varying heights. So it was quite a process to be able to work through those details.
Yeah. Now, what you're looking at is based on the preliminary designs that were undertaken by PKA and Damien. These were the original details developed by Supawood for approval. Now, what happened here, after review by PKA, some panels were rotated to provide precision performance. So what you're looking at there on the left-hand side is that markup based on the advice provided by PKA. So the red R's that you're looking at are those designated panels that needed to be rotated, okay? And that provided the acoustic precision within those spaces. The result, aesthetics and acoustic precision. That's what you're looking at. So All of this to say, for the audience, you as designers, when we say innovation is collaborative, we mean exactly that. And we welcome your input. We welcome you to challenge us in your design. You've got a client with a need, you're the architect. Now you will think of a design innovation. When you're doing that at your concept stage, this is exactly the time that you need to involve someone like Supawood, okay? Because that's when we dialogue with you and collaborate to work out all of the details that we've discussed during this presentation. Then by the time it gets to site for the installation, the builder is being paid to install, right? All of the thinking processes, all of the connection details, all of the compliances, everything that you need have been resolved prior to it getting to site. So you eliminate the arguments, you eliminate the mistakes. And then based on the success of that, we then market your success and release it to the broader community. That's how innovation is evolved through the design community. So Damien and I would like to thank you all very much for your involvement today. We very much appreciate it. Damien, thank you very much for your generous contribution. We really do appreciate it.
Thank you. And again, just to reiterate, the experience that we had with Supawood was one that I'll remember for a long time, and certainly looking forward to future projects. And the quote that we looked at earlier from the young student from Knox Grammar School, it really sums it up. Taking lines and dots on a page and making it come alive, which is exactly what we've done here. Being able to take lines on a page and making it come alive into something that is it's a world-class facility that we've been able to provide, creating innovative learning spaces people can experience not just the performance, but everything that goes into learning about how to perform, the academic side of learning. It's been a lovely experience, and just seeing the consistency through the project from the main theatre, the rehearsal rooms, the foyer. It's a delight. Thank you.
Thanks. Now, for the audience, I'm going to hand you back over to Charlene. Hello, Charlene.
Hello. Thank you very much for that. I think we'll draw the Lucky Door Prize now. So we thank you very much for everyone that participated. I've got a few names in the cup here. If once I call out the name, if the person could put their put a little hi in the chat box, just so that we know that you're here and that we're able to get it to you. So if I get a name, we've got Darren Chen. If Darren could please put something in his in the chat box so that we know. Oh yeah, he put it straight in. Thank you very much, Darren. We'll be in touch with you to get that to you. We thank everyone else for attending, and sorry you didn't get the prize, but we'll definitely have more webinars to come. Thank you and all the very best.
Any questions from anyone?
Yes, we did have a question. It was about fire compliance. So does Supawood offer fire compliant products for these types of projects?
Okay, so succinctly put, the new standard is AS 5637 Part 1, came into force May 1st, 2019. We have always been and we remain completely compliant, fully compliant. There are no shades of grey when you're working with us. So we eliminate any risk on your part. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. And everyone have a good evening.
All right. Thanks all. Good night for now.